Let me share with you my final thoughts from the interview with the Romanian black belt Camil Moldoveanu. As I mentioned, Camil is the co-founder and CEO of Re.flex, which is a motion trackable wearable device that assists in guiding patients with their rehabilitation process. Plus, he co-owns 2 Jiu-Jitsu schools in Bucharest, Romania. I hope you're able to grab at least one good takeaway from the interview, and my personal takeaway is the title of this episode, What is the Worst Case Scenario? I asked Camil about an advice or suggestion that he could give to someone who is not happy with their current situation, regardless of the reason. If you are in this situation, reflect on the questions. If you're not in this situation and you know someone who is, maybe can forward this concept to them. First, he suggested, how is your life without changes? Because it will be the same in 5 or 10 years if you don't take any action. If you're not happy and you refuse to do anything about it and you expect different outcome, that is defined as insanity. Action needs to be taken. Now reflect on the question. What is the worst case scenario, short and long term? Really imagine and go to that place. What the struggle would look like. How would you handle it? Then, as the motivational speaker Les Brown said, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you will land among the stars. Imagine that worst case scenario. Change your perception about the struggle. Think for opportunities for growth and shoot for the moon. If you have been listening to the podcast for a while, you probably noticed at some point me talking about the quote, if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. Most of the time you accept a big challenge in your life, there is an amazing opportunity for growth, regardless of the outcome, positive or negative. If you analyze the situation in the most rational, positive, and intellectual way possible, you will find it. Camil mentioned how he used the mentality of what is the worst case scenario for jiu-jitsu competitions and in all aspects of his life. And in different moments of my personal life, I use the same mindset. Here's the thing. Opportunities for growth are available daily for us all over the place. We just need to be more or even more self-aware and accept some type of challenge. Then the growing process begins or continues. Bigger the challenges, bigger are the opportunities. Remember that I mentioned earlier about changing your perception of challenges or struggles, thinking about these events as opportunities for growth? That is all they are, just events. And you can choose how to respond to them to get the outcome that you want. I would like to share with you a formula that I learned from my first personal development CD set that I bought called The Principles of Success from Jack Canfield. Here it is. E plus R equals O, which means E for event plus R response equals O outcome. For example, if the event is the fact that you're not satisfied with something, the response is that you keep doing the same thing and your outcome is the same situation. You or someone you know can say, Gustavo, I really want to change this outcome. What should I do? So imagine that is a mathematical equation. If I tell you that 2 plus 3 equals 5, you can tell me, Gustavo, I don't like the outcome 5. I like the number 4. I want 4. Okay, fair enough. Freedom of choice. However, for this outcome to change, one of the numbers of the equation needs to be changed. If the event represents the number 2 and the response represents the number 3, what do you need to change to get the outcome that you want? Remember, the fact or the event cannot be changed. Only your response to the fact or to the event can be changed. Which is your answer? Change your response to the event. You must take full responsibility for changing your interpretation of the event, then rationally responding to the event. Let me share with you how I used the worst case scenario mindset when I lived in Brazil and how you can use Jack Canfield's formula that is going to help you to interpret challenges with a growth mindset. During the episode 0, I share with you about my history and the history of the podcast. And I mentioned a story that happened in 1997. I was training at my coach's academy under Pederneiras for the World Championship in Rio when I met an American called Steve Da Silva. We became friends, and in 1998, he went back to Rio for the Worlds, and he issued me a challenge, and he said, hey, Gustavo, in 6 weeks, there'll be a tournament in Irvine, California called the Joe Moreira International Championship. I live in Vegas. You can visit me for a few days. Then we can drive to Irvine, back to Vegas. You can stay in my house and crash at a hotel with us. What do you think? That was a huge desire that I had to travel and compete abroad, which I have never done to that point. Now, let's break down what happened. Okay, the event or fact happened, which means Steve issued a challenge. As soon as I received the information, I interpreted it as, this is the opportunity that I've been looking for to travel and compete. I have to accept this challenge regardless of the short time. I had the vision of me being there, and I told him, I'm going. He said, really cool, man. Do you have the visa? I said, no, I don't even have a passport or the money, but I'm going. I thought, what is the worst case scenario? The American embassy can deny my visa, and I don't get the application money back. Or I don't raise enough money for the trip. On the other hand, the positive is that the first step to travel internationally is to own a passport, so I guess that's progress. My response could have been negative, just focusing on the pain of the challenge of getting your passport, visa, money for the trip that I didn't have in 5 weeks. I was a total of 6 weeks until the actual competition, though. I could have said, Steve, it's too close, man. Next year, it would be cool so I can plan better. What the outcome would have been if I said no? Who knows? I just know that I reflected on the worst case scenario, and long story short, I got my passport, my visa, which by the way was a huge challenge to overcome, and I raised all the money for the trip. What opportunities this challenge provided me? Competed for the first time in the United States. It was one of my last brown belt matches, and I won the featherweight division and the open weight division, plus the opportunity to live in the United States, which I did in less than 4 months after my first trip. That is why I always share the motivational speaker Tony Robbins' quote, it's in your moments of decisions that your destiny is shaped. Because of this decision, you're listening to this podcast today. Now, let me clear things here. I'm not trying to impress you with my accomplishment or my challenges. It's just to convey to you that when a big challenge knocks on your door, and this challenge is something that you have the desire to accept, think about the worst case scenario. How would you handle the obstacles? Reflect on the amazing opportunities for growth that will present itself from accepting this challenge and say, yes. I saw a great interview with the best swimmer of all time, Michael Phelps, that he said, I would visualize the best and the worst case scenarios. Whether I get disqualified or my goggles fill up with water or I lose my goggles or I came in last, I'm ready for anything. So don't be afraid to go there and imagine the worst case scenario. You don't have to focus on the worst case scenario. However, you can be self-aware that is a real possibility. So remember, if you are looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. Os.
We're glad you were able to join us for this episode of the BJJ Mental Coach Podcast, but the lesson doesn't end here. Watch the videos and download the audio of the 10 mental mistakes BJJ competitors make and how to avoid them for free when you subscribe to the BJJMentalCoach.com. Don't miss the chance to find out what might be holding you back from being your best self on and off the mat. That's the BJJMentalCoach.com.